You are listening to WPHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk radio.
It's Wednesday night, time for the Paranormal Experience radio show with host Kat Hobson. Kick back, relax, and get ready to learn. Welcome to the show. Now, here's Kat.
Good evening. Welcome to Paranormal Experienced Radio here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I am Kat Hobson, your host, and we have a tremendous show lined up for you tonight. I just know you're going to enjoy this every bit as much as I am. And I also, before we get started, would like to just offer prayers, positive energy flows, thoughts, whatever you have. Join me for the people of California. They're still missing them by the score. There are people that have lost everything while trying to save others. There is just a hideous experience happening for so many people. And it doesn't matter if they're, Californians or, just plain Americans, whatever. They're humans. And all of the ostracizing that politics have caused us to do lately does not matter one bit in a situation like this. So please, if you can help, reach out. There's so many organizations trying to help these people. If you can't help financially, at least please help spiritually, because it is just a huge, huge deal. And that's what we do, right? We're all part of the same family. Tonight's guest is someone who I have admired and enjoyed very much over the last several years. I did not know that he was one of the people that I was reading in Fate Magazine and in everything. Mysterious Universe. He's done shows on so many networks. As soon as you hear your voice, you're going to be like, oh my word, it's him. And yes, it is. He's written 41 books, with more coming. He has a new book out right now, and it's brilliant. It just came out. Top Secret, Alien Abduction Files, What the Government Doesn't Want You to Know. It's Nick Redfern. And this is going to be awesome. Hi, Nick. How are you?
Hey, Kat. I'm doing good, thanks.
Well, I'm so glad you're here.
Oh, well, thanks for having me on the show.
Well, we met last year in Arkansas, which was just fabulous for me. I'd never been to Eureka Springs, and for number one, I'd never been to a UFO conference, because my focus is paranormal investigation as far as what I do personally. And I have been kind of leaning in that direction with my interest being drawn there. And all of a sudden, there I am at a conference. And that was a good one.
I was going to say, that was actually my first time at the Eureka Springs conference. Although it's been going on for many years, that was the first time I've actually been there. So it was, it was sort of cool. And, it's always good when you get a good-sized audience and attendance,
Well, and that was their 31st anniversary event.
That's right, yeah.
Is that not the longest running of any going on, at least in the U.S.?
I think it probably is. I'm not really aware of any other ones. Maybe the MUFON conference.
Could be.
Yeah, maybe the MUFON conference, but certainly I would say, if not the Ozarks, one has to be sort of second or third in line, I would think.
Well, I would too. And, it was really fun because one of the people who drew me toward the MUFON side of discussions over past years has been Chase Klotsky, and it was my first time to ever see her lecture. And I was fascinated about the skulls. It was relevant to her forensic work on the Peruvian skulls, the elongated skulls. And I had finally gotten to meet Stan Friedman. So that was, I had boxes getting checked left and right, and then I got to hear you lecture, and I was like, oh my word, this is amazing. And, I said that you had written 41 books. That's got to be a little higher now, isn't it, with the new
well,
ones?
It actually is, but I've sort of lost count as well. It just means I keep thinking I'm going to have to sort of go to the shelves and one by one count them, because some of them, there's like different editions and like foreign editions of some of the books and reprints. So it's difficult to sort of actually say how many, are sort of standalone books, but it's close to 50 now, something like that. So.
Well,
one of the days I will get the accurate figure.
Well, I tell you what, as long as you keep putting them out, I'll keep buying them, and I don't care how many there are.
Oh, well, thank you.
You've already sold a Bigfoot book so far since the show has started tonight to Brenda in our chat room, so it's a good thing. But I know that the Men in Black was really a motivation for you with getting started with a lot of this stuff. And I know that on your blog page, your web page, that you explain how that occurred, what got you into that. Could you share it with the audience?
Yeah, how I got involved in the UFO subject, you mean?
I do.
Well, yeah, sure. Well, I'm one of those people who sort of never, I've never, as far as I know, been abducted. I've not seen a UFO landing 20 feet from me or anything like that. But what got me interested is that my dad was in the British Royal Air Force and he worked as a radar mechanic. And he was involved in 3 incidents in the 1950s. This was still the Cold War with the Russians, where strange, high-flying, fast-flying objects were approaching the English coastline from Europe. And the first thought was, well, it's got to be the Russians. And so fighter planes were sent up to try and intercept what they assumed were Russian planes. And some of the pilots reported seeing these large, brightly lit objects were so brilliantly light they couldn't tell what they were. Other people described sort of like classic flying saucers. And over the course of 3 nights, the UFOs sort of ran rings all around the pilots, and they couldn't get close to them. They would sort of like shoot away at high speed and then hover at like 5,000 feet and then shoot away again. Then eventually the planes had to return to their bases because they were running low on fuel. And this, as I said, went on for 3 nights, and after the 3rd night, it all came to a sudden halt. And but everybody involved, the ground crew, the pilots, the radar operators, and the radar mechanics like my dad, everybody who had some sort of input or involvement was taken into a room and told, you won't talk about this. You've signed the British government's Official Secrets Act, which is a piece of legislation like an NDA, like a non-disclosure agreement, but it's sort of like a piece of legislation put together by the government. And my dad actually didn't tell me till I was probably around about 12, something like that. And when he told me, it sort of really opened my eyes, not just because it was my own dad, but also because he worked in the military on radar, and he knew what the radar screen showed, and et cetera, et cetera. And from there, I sort of started to begin reading books by people like Brad Steiger and Charles Berlitz and Alan Hynek and Leonard Stringfield, people who had sort of written UFO book, and John Keel particularly, and a lot of these authors had sort of written books long before I was even born, and but I started sort of reading their books, and that kind of got me interested, and then when I finished school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I worked on a rock music magazine, fashion magazine, and like celebrity news, that kind of thing, and I sort of then decided after a while to sort of combine the interest with the paranormal and UFOs with the background in journalism.
Well, you've done quite well with that.
Well,
I would say.
It's one of those things that, there's certain things all of us can do, I guess hopefully fairly well, and you do it, I mean, I always tell people there's two things I can do in terms of work, and I've done them both. One is working as a writer, and the other one is a forklift driver, which I also did when I really didn't know what I was going to do when I first left school, and the UK was in a recession at the time, and so I just fell back on the forklift driving. Did that about 6 or 7 years, and I'm sort of like a dab hand if anybody needs, a 1-ton crate lifting 40 foot up into the air onto a shelf. I'm the person to do it,
I could have used you a couple of weeks ago. My husband bought a new lathe, and we had to have people come and unload it and bring it in and situate it and such. And that's, as I'm sure that's quite a feat to be able to manage that. It was a little scary.
Used to it, and I did that for quite a few years back in England. But I sort of had that interest in UFOs and things like that, and I said I worked on this magazine for a while. And when the magazine closed after a couple of years, I thought, well, what on earth am I going to do now? It's either do something I hate for the next 50 years, then retire, then die.
I know.
Or am I going to do something I really enjoy? So what I did, I saved some money up, and I literally had about enough money. I calculated that I could live for like the next 6 months on what I got in the bank, and this was when I was back in England, and I thought, well, I'm going to try and write a book or put an idea together and try and sell it to a publisher, and if it doesn't work out, well, I tried, but I'll give myself 6 months to figure out, it's going to work or it's not. And fortunately, I came up with a couple of ideas, and a publisher in England, Simon & Schuster, liked the ideas and said, we'll take you on. And so that was basically, I carried on from there, really. It was just a case of from there to here, I suppose.
That's just amazing. When you were talking about do something you don't love for 50 years and then, what do you have left at that point? I developed that mindset about 10 years ago, maybe more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I've always been a bit of a pirate all my life, and I decided just to, implement that into my everyday life.
Well, I always tell people, I think everybody's got something that they're really good at, and enjoy. And so I always tell people, if you can take that hobby or that interest and make it into like a career as well, and doing something that you enjoy under your own terms, and not having some old boss telling you to move this or do that, which if you can do something that you enjoy on your own terms, I think that's a great way to do it, and that's what I always strive to do. I'm not someone who kind of does well being given orders. I like to just do my own thing. I like to do my own thing, and if people like it, that's fine, and if people don't like it, well, that's how it goes.
Well, that's fine too, right? Because I have learned over time, sometimes I'm a dweeb when I get nervous, and it shows, but as a rule, I try to, just be the best person I can be and make sure that I don't hurt anyone. That's my goal. Those are my goals in life. And even when I'm a dweeb, I always go back and apologize. I'm like,